Un modern concept. Un modern concept.
Everyone knows that living life is about making choices. But how do we choose? Why this and not that? René Girard gave us a simple answer called mimetic desire. We are used to explaining that our choice is rational, which solely depends on the object and its intrinsic qualities. We pretend to choose in a personal, autonomous way, according to our own taste, and without the influence of others. Well, no. By studying literature, Girard shows that some great novelists reveal a profound process in our psychology. Imitation reigns over all our behaviors, including our desires. He then discovers the importance of the model, the one we admire and want to look alike. We only imitate an attractive model and consciously or not, we base our choices on their own. They can be a celebrity we have never met, or the friend we see every day. Men and women know their needs, but do not know where their desires go. They turn to others to make up their mind. Instead of being direct and autonomous, I want this. Our desire is triangular. I want it because my model wants it. This is mimetic desire. For example, we will follow influencers. We think we are autonomous. However, whether we admit it or not, we are always imitating. But then, who are those models and can we choose them? Find out in our next episode.
Un modern concept. Un modern concept.
René Girard made us understand that desires do not come directly from me, but are born from relationship with others. In fact, I unconsciously copy the desires of my model. I want to have what he has to be what he is. The imitated desire draws a triangle. Indeed, in relationships, everyone can occupy one of the three angles: be a model, a disciple, or an object of desire. However, it is necessary to make the difference between two types of imitation, depending on whether the model is far or near. In the first case, the model belongs to another world than that of the disciple. It can be venerated, but not equaled. For example, the model is a fictional character, or a historical character, or a celebrity, a star. The distance between the model and the disciple cannot be bridged. Everyone remains in their place. The same is true in any apprenticeship. Role models such as the father, mother, or schoolmaster belong to the distant and fascinating world of adults. In the second case, the model and the disciple belong to the same world, the world of siblings, school, university, company. They are neighbors, associates, or competitors, and so on. In a relationship of equality, model A and disciple B can exchange their roles. As each desire imitates the desire of the other, the desired object becomes more valuable. As the object becomes more desirable, the desires of A and B become stronger. And as the desire becomes stronger, the rivalry tends to obsess them. The hatred of the other can then override the desire of the object, which will be destroyed or forgotten. To the outside eye, A and B are doubles. It is said that those who are alike come together. Wrong when it comes to desires. The closer we are, the more we copy ourselves. The more we copy ourselves, the more we resemble each other, and admiration turns even more into envy. The triangular desire becomes mimetic, and the mimetic desire then generates the mimetic rivalry. It is the real source of the conflicts that are generally attributed to differences in opinions, beliefs, etc. In fact, it is a quarrel of equals where each one in turn overestimates the being of the other, this venerated model having become an obstacle. In this way, the mimetic desire can generate a great number of pathologies, like narcissism, masochism, and in particular, this strange mixture of hostility and veneration that the modern individual finds for his fellow men, resentment. But then how? And can we avoid it? Find out in our next episode.
Un moderne concept. Un moderne concept.
Pathologies resulting from mimetic desire affect us all, but at different levels. Let's take the case of the snob, who is for René Girard the prototype of the copier. He barely hides his desire to belong to a prestigious group. He looks down on those who are not part of it and bends down in front of his models. We find him ridiculous because in fact he reveals that he judges himself to be inferior like those he despises. But by copying his models to the point of caricature, isn't the snob also a caricature of ourselves? This is the paradox. It is because each of us would like to stand out, be different, that we will begin to look like a revered model. Beware, this is not to attract attention, to be recognized. It is deeper. We unconsciously suffer from a lack of being. We would like to have the personality of our models. Let's take the example of social networks. The mimetism is at its peak, while we see it as a great place for self-expression and creativity. The models are the influencers, themselves often used by the brand system. We follow them by the tens of thousands. They tell you how to furnish your apartment, how to dress, or even what size your nose should be. The idol seems to speak to everyone. To reach the being of this model, the follower will build himself a character, an avatar. In fact, a simple image that those of the community will like if it is well in conformity with the directives. At the risk of big disappointment in return to reality, confronted with the real friends. The abuses of the use of cosmetic surgery are the very example of the dispossession of self to which mimetic desire leads. The disposition of self is precisely what happens to any individual subjected to the contagion of desires. He has lost even his individuality. He has become the drop in the ocean. Mimetism can be positive in the education process. But insidiously, it can also lead to the loss of all differences. Girard calls this process indifferentiation and associates it with violence. Why? And what is the danger for society?
Find out in our next episode.
Un moderne concept. Un moderne concept.
The reciprocal imitation of the combatants prevents the cause of the violence from being found. Each one accuses the others. Violence is like the plague or the flood. It makes no difference. It annihilates them. It is chaos. How do we get out of it? Let's look around us. What do we do when a plague hits a community? Today we look for the causes of the disease to try to eradicate it. In the past, before the progress of science, people were looking for a scapegoat. This is the driving force behind the conspiracy, finding someone to blame. The crowds of the past threw themselves at the different being, a stranger, a cripple, an all-powerful king. He is the culprit. They lynch him or guillotine him. They get rid of the virus and peace returns. The community can start afresh. It is the same mechanism, a mimetic runaway that amplifies violence to all against all and brings peace with all against one. Either men kill each other or they find a solution. On social networks, groups of followers are made up of separate individuals who react to emotion, to likes. Through the contagion of desires, of likes, they will increasingly resemble each other, forget their identity, and constitute a virtual crowd that can obey symbol slogans. In case of illness, teenage or economic crisis, etc., resentment becomes contagious. The group will look for a culprit and find him or her through a rumor, a video, a photo. When the culprit is designated, then, with a few clicks, a blind and mechanical logic triggers the media lynching. The scapegoat could be a slightly different high school student, a well-known figure, a politician, or even a nation. Media lynchings, harassment at school or in the workplace, express the need for a company or a group in crisis to find an outlet. All are united against the evil or the culprit. René Girard will show us that this scapegoat mechanism is a base to build origins and human function hypotheses. To be continued in the next episode.
Un moderne concept. Un moderne concept.
After his detection of the scapegoat mechanism, which can be seen functioning everywhere, René Girard built a hypothesis on the origin of societies. Our pre-human ancestors, carried away by their mimetic violence, would have killed each other if they had not flipped from all against all to all against one. Suddenly gathered around the corpse of their victim, stunned, they saw in it both an evil being, the cause of their violence, and a beneficial being, the cause of their newfound peace. Thus were born the gods, both threatening and beneficent. Humans have kept alive a confused memory of this founding murder. This is why they have tended, during new crises, to repeat this primordial event. They have therefore killed victims, whether human or animal, as their way of reproducing their reconciled unity. Thus, sacrifices are protective murders, which expel violence out of the community. René Girard hypothesizes that sacrificial rites are at work in the origin of animal husbandry and agriculture, because it was with a view of doing offerings that certain animals were domesticated and some cereals cultivated. The first societies were therefore religious. They invented prohibitions to reduce the rivalries, rites to bring the community together, and myths to tell the stories of their human and divine origins. In fact, all institutions come from religious sphere. They conserve traces of the bloody origins of humanity. Political power comes from sacrifice. The king was initially a victim who knew how to benefit from a suspended sentence to impose his power. Progressively, sacrifice has disappeared as we have evolved toward modern monarchies, then toward states, which hold the monopoly on legitimate violence. For René Girard, archaic societies try to contain violence by sacrifice, because they fear they cannot prevent it. Modern societies, on the other hand, having a judicial system, can safely strike at its heart. We have seen, however, that the spontaneous justice of lynching is still very present. The real cause of violence in societies is the mimetic rivalry of our desires. We must become aware of this. But is it possible? It is to a real work on ourselves that René Girard's theory invites us.